Lucy Fisher and George Parker have done a very nice piece in the Financial Times about Robert Jenrick. I was just talking about Jenrick, and I think it's inappropriate not to reference their column. And Jenrick, who was once a relatively unknown figure in British politics, has emerged in a very short space of time as a front runner in the Conservative Party leadership race, and his campaign has been marked by a firm stance on immigration, both legal and illegal, which he places at the core of his platform. And his leadership bid, though initially considered unlikely, has gained momentum, positioning him as a serious contender to succeed Rishi Sunak as the party leader. Not only his platform, but also his presentation. He is a very slick political performer, and of the candidates lined up, he is probably one of the best speakers in the House of Commons. And that wasn't something that was in evidence while he was a junior minister. And it's come as a great surprise in the post-election situation when he stood up and delivered a perfect speech in the House of Commons in the early days of this Parliament. His rise to prominence has been fueled by his strong critique of the current economic and migration policies, and he argues that the long-held economic consensus on the benefits of mass migration is fundamentally broken. According to him, the economic narrative perpetuated by institutions like the Treasury and the Office for Budget Responsibility misleads the public about the true impact of migration on the economy. He claims that mass migration artificially inflates GDP figures while making underlying economic challenges hidden by masking these challenges such as stagnant wages and strained public services. His campaign rhetoric sharply contrasts with his own earlier political positions. Once a supporter of the UK remaining in the European Union, he now advocates for taking full advantage of Brexit's opportunities, particularly in curbing migration. He's proposed setting a concrete cap of 100,000 net inward migrants per year and taking the UK out of the European Convention on Human Rights, a stance that sets him apart from his competitors, and something that I think should put him out of the range of sensible consideration. I admire him. I must say I've warmed to him since the election, but I don't admire his policies at all. I think his policies are dangerous. His campaign has been a story of unexpected success. As I say, there's this thing where he says one thing and he indicates there's something going on behind it, and I think that's clever. And I think in a way it sums him up. Despite starting as what he called a rank outsider, we can agree about one of those words anyway, he has topped the first two ballots of Conservative MPs, and his strategy has been to position himself as a candidate who can restore the party's traditional values. I don't know where that term came from, while addressing contemporary challenges, particularly in terms of immigration and economic policy. He's also young, so he'll be there in 5 years' time. He criticises the current government for not being robust enough in handling asylum seekers, a stance that resonates with a significant faction of the Conservative base. His rise has not been without controversy. He has openly criticised past Conservative administrations, including those he was a part of, for failing to address the economic distortions caused by mass migration. His outspoken nature, particularly his accusation that the Treasury and the OBR have been gaslighting the public, has drawn attention and stirred debate within the party. As he heads into the Conservative conference in Birmingham, he leads a field that includes Kemi Badenoch, James Cleverly, Tom Tugendhat, and he's critical of the format of the conference, describing the allotted 20-minute speeches for candidates as disrespectful to party members. He believes that the Conservative campaign headquarters risks oversimplifying the debate by limiting the exposure and scrutiny of the candidates. His leadership bid is underpinned by a promise to shift the Conservative Party's focus towards policies that directly benefit working people. and he envisages the party as a trade union for working people, committing to addressing their concerns about housing, jobs, and the perceived erosion of British culture. His campaign also emphasises the need for a new approach to energy, policy, and welfare to stimulate economic growth. As I say, 42 years old, young, comes from a modest background in Wolverhampton, has had a diverse career before entering politics, and his professional life included stints as a commercial lawyer and at Christie's auction house before becoming an MP for Newark in 2014. His personal narrative, which he often invokes, is of a self-made politician who's moved from being a centrist to adopting a more right-wing stance as his views have hardened over time. I must say, I wish they'd soften again. But despite his current hardline position on immigration, Jenrick's political evolution has seen him navigate various ideological currents within his own party, and his critics argue that his shift to the right is a tactical manoeuvre to win over right-wing members. However, Jenrick maintains that his current positions reflect his deeply held beliefs, shaped by his upbringing and observations of the decline of traditional industries in the 1970s. His challenge now is to consolidate his lead while appealing to the broader Conservative membership. And he's been clear that rebuilding trust with the electorate will be a slow process, and that the party has a mountain to climb before the next general election. His bid for leadership hinges on convincing party members that only he can address the fundamental issues of immigration, economic growth, and cultural identity in a way that resonates with the public. Of course, what he fails to realise is that the issue of immigration is now going to be tackled by the Labour Party, and if they get it right, this is no longer going to be an issue that will matter to the Conservative Party. The Conservative Party needs to think in the long term, not in the short-term review of what happened in the last 14 years. I'm afraid in the end, that is Jenrick's focus, and that is his error. So as the party approaches this critical juncture, his campaign offers a vision of a more restrictive immigration policy, a recalibrated economic strategy, he thinks, and a commitment to traditional values, which are never quite explained. Whether this will be enough to secure his place as the next party leader, and I hope not, and ultimately as Prime Minister, remains to be seen.